Voilà, here you are.
So, welcome everyone to the first in a series of webinars brought to you by Mind Focus Coaching. We are the developers of Mindful Choice, an innovative and transformative method for achieving lasting change in your life. Our mission statement is very simple. If you can change the way you think, you can change the way you feel and the way you act. Over the course of our webinars, we will show you how you can utilize the principles and strategies we have designed to effectively manage the enormous challenges we face as the result of the COVID-19 crisis, and even thrive in the process. We hope you find our webinars informative and useful. So we'd like to introduce ourselves. Okay. My name is Dr. Robert Leibovitz. I am a psychologist in private practice here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I have been in private practice for approximately 35 years. I've also been on the faculty of the University of Pittsburgh for roughly 25 years, where I trained graduate students in assessment and psychotherapy. For decades, I've been looking for innovative ways to help people make change last in their life. And we believe, that Mind Focus Coaching represents the culmination of those efforts. Dr. Meyer?
Nice to meet you, all of you. I'm Abraham Gerald Meyer. I was president of Carnegie Mellon Driver Training and Safety Institute, which was funded by the Department of Transportation in America. And I was researching mostly decision under stress in split second, and how can we develop some mechanism to keep ourselves safe. And the answer, as you will see in many things we will show you today, is in your mind. And it's to learn to think in a safe way.
Thank you. Before I describe the objectives of our webinar, I'd like to share some very keen insights brought to you by some real experts in the management of isolation, a team of NASA astronauts. In an interview, they made the following observations. First, they said, confined is not imprisoned. During this time, we are all experiencing a sense of being limited in our activities, but as they put it, that doesn't mean you are somehow imprisoned, it just means you're limited. And they offered three key elements to succeed, to manage to cope with isolation. The first is staying with tasks on a schedule. And apparently they have a very strict regimen from morning till night that they stick to in terms of getting all the various activities that they have to do. Stamina and health, they focus quite a bit on maintaining their health by engaging in various kinds of activities, obviously. And the last thing for dealing with confinement is paying attention and being sensitive to others and being able to communicate clearly to others. And as you're going to see from our presentation, we're going to be emphasizing that quite a bit as well. So, Dr. Meyer. So today's learning objectives are the following. Since this is the first in a series to provide you with the principles of mind-focused coaching, we're just going to be having an overview today of those principles. We're going to present a comprehensive format for organizing your thinking and how to adapt to living in this stressful time. We're going to identify some key concepts that we utilize in problem solving. And we hope to provide you with some practical solutions and recommendations that you can take away today, that you can actually put into practice, hopefully to make daily life less stressful. Thank you. Okay. So let's talk for a minute about what the impact of COVID-19 really is for us today. COVID-19 is a black swan event. That's simply shorthand for saying that it is something we've never really encountered before, probably in our history. It's unlike the Spanish flu of 1917, 1919. It's unlike the Ebola virus. It's unlike anything we've ever experienced, and as a consequence, the past does not predict the present nor the future. Pardon me. The methods, even the epidemiological methods that we've used in the past for dealing with those other epidemics, no longer apply, and we've had to institute mechanisms that we've never considered before, like the social distancing that we now are experiencing. The last point to be made about the impact is that every day brings a new state of circumstances to manage, which is to say that in the news, we hear about new data that's being collected, we hear about new approaches that's being made, and every day we have to incorporate those things and learn and use our adaptational tools to deal with a new situation. It's never the same. Okay. Now, as with so many life challenges that we confront, coping with COVID begins in the mind, begins with the way we think. And there are three clear, important elements to that. Living in the now, knowing what really matters to you, and setting clear outcomes. So let me discuss each one of those things in turn. Okay. Dr. Meyer? Thank you. Okay. So what does living in the now really mean? Well, first off, it means that here now is what matters. When we're in a situation where the future is so fluid and unpredictable, we cannot turn our attention to looking at what happens tomorrow or what comes down the road. We have to focus on what's going on right now. And to do that, we have to become keenly aware of ourselves and the external circumstances we're in, as well as what's going on inside us. This awareness covers all areas of our being, okay? We know, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Excuse me, there's someone here who I believe has her mic on. If she could turn her mic off, I'd appreciate it. I think Sarah, I see Sarah has her mic on. If Sarah could turn her mic off, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Right. Yes. Right. Sarah, could you turn your mic on, please? Sarah? Thank you very much. Thank you. Perfect. Very good. Thank you. Dr. Meyer, could I get the, could you bring that back up, please? Great. Okay. Talking about awareness of my current circumstances, both externally and internally. So one of the things that we know is that when we no longer have the anchors that we're accustomed to, the structure in our lives, the diversions that we're accustomed to, what happens is it increases and enhances anxiety, boredom, and the capacity for rumination. So we want to be aware of those pitfalls that we face. And the way to do that is by focusing our attention. The way we overcome them is by focusing our attention living today, one day at a time. Today is all that really matters. Next. Okay. Okay. A time of crisis can also be a time of opportunity. So what else can we do to create the structure that we need in our daily lives? We have to identify what really matters to us. How do we want to be? What life do I want to have? That constitutes my destination. And for now, this is a unique opportunity which we often don't get. Excuse me. This is a unique opportunity which we often don't take to really clarify how we want our lives to be. Okay? Clarify one's life priorities. Okay? And we must recognize that the destination precedes the journey. Where I want to get to determines on how I'm going to get there. Right? So once I have a destination, and I want to be very clear about something, excuse me, finding your destination is not a simple matter. Right? It often can take quite a bit of thought, quite a bit of analysis, quite a bit of communication with others to really decide these are my values and this is what really matters in my life. Right? But once I have my destination, I can plot out my course with a coherent action plan. And I can organize the things I have to do in a very simple matrix based on two criteria: important and urgent. I can organize the things that I have to do based on things that are both urgent and important, urgent but not important, important but not urgent, not urgent, not important. Clearly, the very first, the things that are urgent and important take precedence, right? Whereas things that are not urgent and not important, for where I am right now, for what I want to accomplish, I can dismiss those. Those aren't really necessary. Throughout this whole process, it's very, very important to recognize that while the brain can do many things at once, the mind can only do one thing at a time. The concept of multitasking is really a myth. We can sequentially task, but we really can't multitask. And when we try, what invariably happens is we lose sight of what our objectives are, and we end up really not reaching the destination that we're trying to reach. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Meyer.
Before speaking about developing a schedule for resilience, you have on the top of your screen a little circle with chat, and you feel free to type any message you want, any question, any reaction, and we will address them, if not immediately at the end of the webinar. We know where you are, we know how to contact you, and we have your email, and we will send it to you, and we will answer your question. Hopefully, we will be able also to have few questions at the end of the webinar. Developing a schedule for resilience is very important in the time we are now, because you don't have the colleague, the boss, you don't have the schedule made by your work. You are your own boss, and you need to make your own schedule. But you need to secure personal working time and personal time. But you have to balance between your private life and your professional life. And what you want to do is to end up to prepare yourself at this moment to get out of this situation on a professional way, being more tuned to the work you can do, bettering yourself. So you secure time for your work. You can have professional online interactive conferencing where you can share documents, you can have meetings, and it's very important because you can even get commitment from people from that. You need to share own chores on respective responsibility with your significant one, with your children, your family. And you need to avoid being glued to news outlets. That's a big danger in this moment of coronavirus. Securing personal working time is to go from chaos to order, to organize your life. You need structure and regularity. In this moment, regularity is a very important element. You need to know what to do and when to do it, because everything is about time. Even in coronavirus time, everything is about time. What you can do in a day, the production of what you can do in a day, for you or for your work or for others, is limited by time. And using time effectively, you need to know how to use time effectively for assigning time limits for all things. How much time you will work, how much time you will entertain yourself, entertain others. How much time you spend on the news. That's a very, very important element. The second one is a professional online interactive conferencing. It, it's really a good tool. It started many years ago, but it's not mainstream. It is now becoming a mainstream necessity. So you need to focus on effective strategy to maximize productivity, not just to smooth, but how can you get a better outcome than you were able before. Online conferencing and agenda consolidation. You need to have an agenda of your video conferencing, and you need, before you start a video conferencing, to have an agenda of what do you want to achieve, action plan. And in this case, less is more. You don't need to have too many long meetings. You want short meeting, and you want short meeting on very clear objective. You need to recognize that there is an increase physical demand, mental effort necessary for online activity. And you need to adjust with such expectation of the other people. Online meeting is more difficult than face-to-face meeting in reality. And you need to be taking that in consideration. You need to share chores at home on respective responsibility, because you will not be in a good situation to work, in a good mental state to work, if you get stressed by problems at home, or by fight, or by why do you work and not me? Only you have to work. Picking up a fight is very easy at this time. So you need to know what is your primary or secondary objective. And in this, you need to know that the big picture on your primary objective is to survive that the best possible, not the worst. Again, you need to be positive. You need to see the big picture and have that as an objective. Big picture is harmony, peaceful coexistence. It's above your own interest, your own feeling, your own thought. You need to put peace before everything, because peace of mind will help you to sleep. No peace of mind will help you to stress more. Caring for kids, you need to know what is our necessity and what are extra. And actually, you can decide, because it's difficult to keep the kids at home. And you can decide, there is things they like to do. And you can use it with the old method of bribing. If you do that, you have the tablet for each time. If you do that, you have that also. So you need to give also for the children objective and outcome. They need to have clear outcome of what they can do, if they are helpful or if they are not becoming a problem. Big hint, keeping up with school work is certainly not worth fighting for it. You need to find a way, again, bribing or doing what we call edutainment, but you need to find a way not to be in an adversarial situation with your kid, with your wife. You need to escape the 24/7 news cycle. And you need to know how not to become a news junkie. There is the news outlet are making money from you from the time you look at it. And they want you to look at it the most of the time. Your cell phone is sending you 20 alerts or 20 different things. So you need again to have a primary objective, what news you want to look, what for, and obviously it's about to know something which could be useful for your safety or how coming out of that situation, how to deal with that situation. But also, the stimulus overload is a form of stress. You get information, you get bombarded, you get fake news, you get a lot of news, you get a lot of jokes, and you cannot work, and you are not available even for your family or yourself. So you need to limit access to the 24/7 news cycle, and you need to utilize reliable data websites for needed information. You need to know what website you look for, what information you are looking for. Don't take what they feed you. take what you choose that you need. Viktor Frankl was somebody who was a very famous psychologist, and he was in a concentration camp. And he decided that the terrible situation he was will not define who he is. And he developed a theory called tragic optimism. It's an optimism despite tragedy. So it's again developing your destination, developing who you are, knowing who you are to avoid to become what other wants you to become. And in this time, other want you to become a news junkie. Other wants you to become very dependent of them. So Viktor Frankl explained that you should not fixate on temporary tragic situation. It's temporary. You're still alive. And today, as we said, you're in the moment. Today you live. Tomorrow is tomorrow. Tomorrow will not exist before today goes. And you need to insert meaning into what is happening now. That will bring strength and lasting resilience that you will have for lifelong, for other problems in life. We can find meaning despite the tragic suffering, guilt, and death around us or coming close to us. How do we define meaning in our life? That's a very good question. So Frankl defined it with three main issues: creating work or doing a deed. And a deed could be a good deed, but any creating work or doing a deed is an action. You need to be active. You need action. Experiencing something or encountering someone, for example, a loved one. But you need to have an experience which is positive, despite the situation. And you need transcending, learning, and finding meaning for the inevitable suffering that you will experience. You will. But the suffering is not what matters. What matters is your capacity to survive. You need to become a survivor, not a victim. And you can groom that type of skill and develop them. So, Bobby.
So now when we listen to Viktor Frankl, he's told us that optimism and meaning are the mental anchors for coping. Right? But in action, we also have to pay attention to what we call POD, play, others, and downtime. Okay? Let's start with play. Okay? One of the things that I've heard from a number of my clients is the experience of lethargy and depression based on the fact that there is just the feeling of being oppressed right now. Right? We have to take play seriously. Okay? And I know that sounds like a paradox, but what it really means is that we have to recognize we need something that injects a lightness to our lives, and play can do that. We need rest and relaxation, not as a guilty pleasure, not as something that we indulge in but we think we shouldn't, but really as something that is absolutely required of us because it will enhance our lives and it will invigorate us and give us more energy to do the things we need to do. At the same time, let's recognize that not all play activities are created equal, okay? We have to be careful. We have to be aware of indulging in activities that could be, in a manner of speaking, addictive. What I'm referring to there, for example, is spending hours playing video games or watching movies or videos or same such, as opposed to doing other kinds of activities that are more inspiring. Those activities actually do not invigorate us. They don't enhance our lives. They actually leave us feeling kind of down and depressed. That's something we've come to learn very, very definitely. Okay.
That's why it's better to play with other people.
Now, others. Okay. Connection is the antidote to isolation and apathy. It keeps us up. Let's remember that we are social beings. Okay? What that means is that we seek out companionship, we seek out fellowship. We don't do well in solitary confinement. We're not meant to be solitary. So in a time when casual day-to-day contact, like what we're accustomed to, is so restricted, okay, we have to do something else. We have to find another way. In this case, staying in virtual contact with others near and far, including clients. And for the professionals here, that's very, very critical. I had one client who mentioned to me that he found it very difficult staying in touch with his clients, but we discussed how valuable that will be for his future. But staying in touch with people who sometimes we haven't been in touch with for a very long time can actually be very invigorating and give us a great feeling of hopefulness and joy. One way to maintain this staying in touch is by keeping a contact log, and specifically in our schedule, in our daily routines, setting aside time for socializing. And that's not just schmoozing, but that's really talking to people and getting close to them as we would if we were face to face. Next. Finally, downtime. Okay. Within our schedules, we have to recognize that the downtime we take has enormous potential value. Rather than being idle and just sort of squandering it with activities that have very little consequence, we can become motivated to do things, to see possibilities and pursue objectives that we never attempted before. Maybe we can learn something that we have been putting off and we've meant to learn. Maybe it's practicing a skill or re-practicing a skill, getting back to playing a musical instrument. Maybe it's writing ourselves our own thoughts and our own experiences during this time that we're going to look back on at some point, and we're actually going to find it very, very, very enhancing, very invigorating to remember what we went through and how we went through it. So this is a time that we can do things that we never really took time to do before. Dr. Meyer?
So we spoke about telecommunication, but this is a time definitely where we need to embrace technology, because the solution to confinement is technological telecommunication. So there is telehealth. Now you can use telehealth system for health, virtual reality and online learning. There are really three elements which can change positively our life. Telehealth, it's very good. It started a few years ago, but now it becomes a necessity, for example, for older patients which are at risk to go to the hospital. So we will see telehealth grow as a big economic sector, and that is something to embrace. But it's a workable substitute for monitoring current health status in absence of face-to-face contact. There is a lot of things you can do also on your cell phone to know your blood pressure and a lot of vital signs. So telehealth is very important. But it gives a proper preparation for optimal value. You need to be trained. And we see now that you have visiting nurse, to help patients, older patients or all type of patients, to how to use the telehealth, and how also when the nurse is visiting, a specialist, a doctor can be involved and join the conversation. But it requires some adjustment to interactive style. You need to learn how to do telehealth, and that's why there is a need of being coach in that domain. Virtual reality is something wonderful. In fact, it's using the power of your mind, your imagination. Virtual reality is not just an online game. It's you get immersed. You get immersed. You can fly. You can do a lot of things. And the limit is your imagination. But virtual reality is an amazing way, which is used now, for example, in psychology to help patients which are obsession, for example, with spider or flying. There is many treatments in psychology of phobia which are used and treated by virtual reality. So virtual reality is something we will see developing. You cannot go to the beach, but you can feel something and experience a trip. So you feel unrestrained from center in place. You are immersed completely and you're experiencing an alternative reality. It's another reality. And we call it now actually augmented reality. You use your imagination and other type of creativity that frees your mind. With virtual reality, you can think unbound, which means you can feel unbound. Remember, thinking comes before feeling. So what you think will condition what you feel because your thought precedes the feeling. Online learning. Online learning is definitely something that many people needed, but it was well developed. But now there is many programs, and I would say even too many maybe. But distance learning is becoming now the norm. So you need to choose your focus and focus on your choice. What is it you want to learn? Because if not, again, plethora, it will be like a buffet where there is so much to eat that you leave the place feeling, in fact, very, very upset because you could not try everything or you try too much. So you need to pace yourself. You need to maintain the same structure as for a classroom course. It's not a downgrade type of course. To the contrary, you can achieve great study and great progress with online learning. So that's a very important thing to do now. You need also to maintain health and wellness. And health and wellness is not something we just speak at this time of coronavirus, because that's something we have developed for all our clients. The health and wellness is a mind and body link. And that's why we speak about not a holistic mind and body, but holistic, taking everything in consideration. And there you have hygiene, diet, stamina. So hygiene, it incorporates all the practice to stay healthy. Mind and body link, because if your mind is in good condition, you will be able to achieve physical activity. But if you are depressed, you will be reluctant to go to physical activity. Reverse, if you do too much of something, you will be tired and you will not be able to do it. The importance of the whole mind and body concept is the flow between oxygen and giving you energy to think, energy to do. It includes personal protection to COVID, adequate sleep. Sleep is a very important element in normal time for our client. When a client say, I have a problem to sleep, we know that there is stress associated with it, maybe anxiety, maybe more. So you need to make sure, even in COVID, during COVID time, to sleep well. You need to guard against other illness. You need to reduce stress and conflict. And you need to not look at the news before you go to bed, because that's very discouraging. Diet. The diet is important because poor nutrition it brings lethargy, low energy, spike and drop from high carb food. And you need to be very careful because the high carb, you need to control what type of food you eat. The misuse of food for emotional comfort or bursts of attention is not good. You know the reward of I don't feel good, I will take chocolate. You become dependent of the food, and the food become a fix for you. So you have to be very careful to be a healthy diet, a balanced diet, which can moderate negative effect of limited physical activity. More than ever, in this time, you need to eat better because you don't exercise that much. Stamina, now that comes with the exercise. Endurance, to enhance endurance via physical movement, relaxation, response, and listening to music is important. In addition to relaxation, proper breathing is very important to learn to de-stress and to have proper breathing. That we have a course on that actually. But you want, despite the fact you are at home, you want to keep yourself active. And there is many different plastic ball, elastic, many things. You can do exercise. But remember one thing about this little little image here. Stamina is a question of behavior. The behavior you have and the attitude you choose will really help you to set your personal goals. This situation is a marathon, not a sprint. It will last. So you last a certain time. And you need to pace yourself because it's critical to avoid depletion. You need to view activities from the perspective, will this increase my stamina? What does not increase your stamina is a bad choice. And that's something also, good choice by choice, we will be treating in subsequent webinar. Dr. Lebovitz.
When all is said and done, we presented you with a number of different issues, a number of different suggestions around what actions you can take, what physical efforts you could, what physical efforts you have to look after. But when all is said and done, the most important elements to coping with the stresses of the COVID crisis is identifying and being focused on how we think, because that will determine whether we are effective, whether we succeed, or whether we unfortunately fail to get through this crisis as better than when we came in. Right? To that end, we want to show you the path to being constructive, positive, and calm. Right? We're going to offer strategies for dealing with fighting stress and anxiety, impulse control, and communicating and information management. Let's start with stress. Okay? Take a look at that stress meter. And what you see is that it starts with relaxed and it ends up with panic attack. What that represents is simply the idea that stress is not quantum. It's not yes or no, all or none. It's measurable and it is incremental. Right? There is positive stress. Positive stress leads to increased coping skills. But then there is negative stress. There is stress that builds because of circumstances that we go through, and also stress that builds because of the way we think. One of the most valuable contributions of positive psychology is the concept of learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is a phenomenon that we all have experienced when we confront something, when we confront a situation that is beyond our control, that we feel is profoundly affecting us. And there's nothing we can do to change it. There's nothing, no action that we can take that can take away this difficulty because it's out of our control. And what very often happens is we become helpless, we become lethargic, we become depressed. And in our feelings of vulnerability, we become paralyzed to act. Okay? But there is an antidote to learned helplessness. And the antidote is something that Viktor Frankl has alluded to when he talks about meaning. It's the power of choice. Right? It's the ability to look at a situation, for example, looking at this COVID crisis, and recognize that on the one hand, it is enormously impactful on our lives. We feel imprisoned. We feel like it is taking away. Quarantine is an unbelievable imposition on our freedom. Okay? But at the same time, we can look at quarantine and we can look at what we're going through and recognize that we are doing this for the greater good. We are doing this for people we care about. Unfortunately, we all know how many lives have been lost already. And in fact, many of us know people who have died from COVID, from the coronavirus. So the actions that we take, even dealing in quarantine, even staying in quarantine, we can look at from the perspective that we are helping everyone else. Okay? Now, both of those things are true. It is an imposition and we're helping everyone else. But we can choose which one of those realities is mine, which one of those facts is the one that I focus on. Our reality is the sum total of our choices. Okay? In every circumstance, we will be presented with a way to look at things positively or a way to look at things negatively. What we focus on is our choice, and it's the focus that provides meaning that Viktor Frankl talked about. So if we want to acquire a positive attitude, we will focus on our best selves. That's another concept from positive psychology, the idea of a best self. We'll focus on our best selves, and we won't let the past, whatever it is we've been experiencing, determine the present or the future. We will determine that by the choices we make. Okay? Next. Your choice. Attitude is a matter of choice. Okay? As you can see from the illustrations, right? We always have a binary choice. We can look at it this or that. Either we are trapped or we're in our homes, but we are in a state of serenity, in a state of peace. That is an attitude that derives from the choices that we make. Now, how we want to be under whatever condition, that becomes our destination. This is how I want to be. I want to be that person that can relax and feel serenity. That's my destination. Being positive is not simply a state of mind. It's also a cognitive process. It means that we focus on solutions, not on the problem. As you can see from these illustrations, the first one, the one on the left, says you end up where you look. One of the most fascinating aspects of the research that Dr. Meyer conducted at his Driver Training and Safety Institute was the fact that he found out that, in fact, where a driver looks, wherever his focus is, that's where the vehicle would go. Now, that's not just true in regard to driving, that's true in regard to everything we do. Where we look is where we go. If I look for a positive solution, if I look for the positive in a situation, that's where I'll go. If I focus on the problem, if I focus on blame, if I focus on finding out who's responsible, then I will not find a solution. I will instead only see more problems. Right. Next. So we know that we choose our attitude, right? We know that we have the ability to stay calm. We have the ability to go with the flow, or we can, again, feel trapped, feel overwhelmed, feel burdened. As you can see from that small illustration about the quarantine, those what I believe are eggs, right? It goes all the way from sadness to serenity, okay? That is our choice. We don't have to feel trapped. We can go with the flow, okay? Dr. Meyer? So, how do we manage our impulses? Because one of the things that we know, one of the things that is very clear is that when stress is unmanaged, we regress. That's a very, very not only a universal phenomena, but it's true in virtually every situation that we're in. And regression can take the form of, can be caused rather by fatigue, it can be caused by hunger, it can be caused by all sorts of physiological as well as mental states. And when we are in a state of regression, certain things happen. We become more needy, we become more impulsive, our empathy decreases, okay, as does our problem-solving ability. And when we become more impulsive, we act without thinking, and we pay little attention to important matters that would be invested in our decision-making. Now, people who have attention deficit disorder, and we know that there are quite a number of people like that, already begin with their impulsivity and their distractibility. So the COVID crisis actually, as you can imagine, simply makes their lives even more challenging and even more stressful. Right? So when we will talk in future webinars about how to manage impulse control effectively, even for people who have ADHD, and help them enhance their executive function and diminish their ability to make some rather poor judgments. Next. So this is how hormones influence our emotions. Right? And there you see that the first response to stress is hormonal. Then come emotions. And if we allow our hormones and emotions to dictate what drives us, we will make some rather undesirable choices, and we will end up doing some things that we will regret later on. So how do we manage this? How do we avoid falling into this trap of letting hormones and emotions just define us and lead us? Well, the first thing is something rather very simple: breathe. Take deep breaths, oxygenate the brain. We underestimate the value of enhancing our brain function simply by oxygenation. When we do that, it decreases our reactivity. It actually opens up thought processes that are closed off, and it makes us much more capable of good decision making versus poor decision making. We can break out of tunnel vision once we get into that place of thoughtfulness, and we can tune into everything that is around us, not just the limited scope that's in front of us, so that we can find positive alternatives. Again, tunnel vision effect is something we discuss at great length in future webinars, and it is a major component in our mind focus coaching. Okay? Remember, one of the standards that we mentioned before: long-term gains beat out short-term gratifications. Impulsivity is all about the short-term gratification, but almost always it defeats our long-term gains. Right? So that when we allow short-term gratification to rule, we will almost invariably regret it in the future, because it will hamper us from reaching our destination. Right. Dr. Meyer? At this point, I'd like to suggest to everyone, visit our website, mindfocuscoaching.com. Look at the menu. Under the menu, there is an item called free assessments. We would suggest that everyone take the opportunity to take these free assessments, which will help you identify your thinking patterns, will help you recognize if you have issues with procrastination or impulsivity, and it will give you it will give you some recommendations and some assessment as to how you might most effectively find pathways to make better decision making. There's also a short video that explains more about these analytics, and we would really suggest that you try it, because it can actually, in this time, the more you know about yourself, the more effective you're going to be in managing the situation. Okay? So Stay calm. If anyone, I don't know if anyone here has ever read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but one of the most important ideas that was communicated in that book was the idea, don't panic, stay calm. This is a time when we want to be well composed and poised, because we are going to have to continue this marathon of quarantine and shelter in place for some time to come. One of the most powerful means of coping with adversity is the mechanism of connecting to others. Now, I mentioned others before in terms of how we can set times for others, but I want to emphasize that it's not simply a matter, it's not a diversion, it's not just another form of play. It really is enhancing. We can't do this alone. We need others for support. We need others to maintain our equilibrium to be able to function most effectively. So we want to safeguard relationships, and we want to communicate our appreciation and our affection. Take nothing for granted. Whatever friends, family are available, in whatever ways they do things for you, in whatever ways you do things for them, just remember that it's a gift. They don't have to do it. It's not incumbent upon them to do it. So you want to appreciate everything that's done for you, and you want to show your appreciation and express your affection. The most effective form of success comes from a team, not from an individual, and we are all part of this team coping through the COVID crisis. Dr. Meyer.
So before closing, we spoke at one moment about the Black Swan event. So let's speak about the usual time, which is all the White Swans event, where we do a lot of things by automatism. We do many things without thinking. And in other webinars which will be coming, we will be able to address that element. But today, I would like to leave you with just one idea. Don't live to think, but think to live. And you need to think well if you want to survive the situation. And you need to think in a positive way. And that is where hopefully our webinar can help you, or you can go on our website. We have a lot of educational video. We have a lot of activities. We have also online exercise. Feel free to contact us and send us an email. I can assure you that in the same day you will receive an answer either from Dr. Lebovitz or myself about your question. We will address it. And we hope to see you. The next webinar is in 2 weeks, Knowing Yourself. The next one is Managing the Enemy Within, because we have inside us an enemy who deter us to succeed. Dealing with others on external factors. The question is not just dealing with you. There is many external factors. Changing into successful peak performance. That's the mind and body and peak performance concept. Improving decision making, learning to make good decisions, not wrong decisions, and ready to success and happiness. So after that, people graduate. So maybe I would like to take 1 minute to look at, I think we have 15 minutes, very good. I have to thank you very much. Excellent. I don't see any question. Thank you for your word of encouragement. We hope to see you again. And does anybody want to say a short word? We have a few more minutes. Please feel free to express yourself. Anybody?
Give them a moment, Gerard. There we go. There's one person. Okay, thank you very much for all of you who've expressed your encouragement and your good wishes. We want to thank you very much. We hope to see you at the next seminars.
Thank you very
Take care.
much. It was inspiring.
Keep healthy, and the goal is to end up out of this crisis in a better situation and in a better spot than when you entered.
Yes.
So that's what we want to help you to do. Take care, be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shalom. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.